After a disappointing start to the Chicago Bulls season, in which they are currently 6-9, sitting 11th in the East, I think we can all agree that the construction of this roster is not the best. Yes, you have 3 all-star caliber players. Yes, you have a strong bench, something we didn't have last year. Yes, the Bulls don't have their starting point guard in Lonzo Ball, who is a big piece for the Bulls offense and defense with his shooting, playmaking, and perimeter defense. So yes, that is a contributing factor to the Bulls' struggles, but the Bulls' issues clearly run deeper than that, although I do think some of it is on coaching. I already made a separate video on that topic regarding the challenges and frustrations of Billy Donovan's coaching style. I'm not going to go over that in this video. Instead, we're solely going to be looking at the issues that lie with the Bulls roster makeup and what can be done to remediate one particular aspect, not all, of that, and which is lacking on this team, and that is shooting. So in today's video, we're going to be going over trades the Bulls should immediately consider pulling the trigger on before the season gets out of hand. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, when you look at the Bulls and their current state on offense, I don't think anyone would disagree that the Bulls absolutely need shooting. And honestly, this was really the case going into the offseason. That's why it was a pretty big surprise that the Bulls, going into free agency, didn't add any shooters to their lineup. They added Drummond, who most certainly is not a shooter, and Dragic, who, while yes, is an okay shooter and at least was a decent enough shooter in his prime, is not what you would call a sharp shooter that is going to elevate that aspect of your team. You look at the Bulls' numbers on offense: 15th in the league in overall field goal percentage, 15th in three-point shooting percentage, but also 28th in the league in attempts from behind the arc. When it comes to advanced metrics, they're 22nd in the league in true shooting and 21st in the league in offensive rating. Yeah, not good. And it's surprising because the Bulls have 3 great offensive players in DeRozan, Lavine, and Vucevic, yet these numbers don't really paint that great of a picture of their offensive impact as it relates to their shooting. And look, when I say Bulls need shooting, we're talking about outside shooting, sharp shooters, guys that specialize in this skill, being predominantly catch and shoot scorers that help space the floor, that can draw double teams away from guys like DeMar and Zach, because they're such a threat that you can't leave them open. That's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about shooters for the sake of this video, because yes, both DeMar and Zach are actually great and very efficient quote-unquote shooters, especially in the mid-range, but they're players that generally have the ball in their hand to create their own shot. They're not going to help space the floor as much, and they're not going to be scoring off the catch and shoot. It's just not part of their game. Now, of course, the Bulls' best shooter is out of the lineup, which really doesn't help any of this. Lonzo Ball was shooting 42% from 3 on over 7 attempts per game, which was one of the best in the league when shooting at that rate on that kind of volume. And yes, the hope is Lonzo will eventually be coming back and he'll solve some of the Bulls' shooting woes, but the fact of the matter is we don't really know how long Lonzo is going to be out. There are some who speculate the earliest he'll be back is in January, while others have said it's very likely he'll miss the whole season, which would be a nightmare scenario for the Bulls, who have been so focused on continuity. But based on what we know today, based on who's available for the Bulls roster, we know this team is in desperate need of shooting. And here are some realistic trades the Bulls could conceivably make happen. And I say realistic because yes, we would all love to add Steph Curry or even Donovan Mitchell, but at least let's try to be practical here. And honestly, one of these makes me want to cringe to even think about the point that I would actually consider them in one of these trade scenarios. But anyway, you'll see what it is. Let's get into some of these. But before I get into that, a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Established Titles. So I had this company reach out to me and ask if I wanted to own land in Scotland, which I thought was a little odd. Why would I want to own land in Scotland? Well, Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. It is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. And what you're looking at here is a title of land that I currently own in Scotland. Yes, I am now a landowner in Scotland, a lord, if you will. Title packs give you at least 1 square footage of dedicated land on a private estate. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of the land. Now, what's cool about this company and what they're doing is that they plant a tree with every order made and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. It makes for a great last-minute gift. They even have couple packs that come next to my plot within a few miles of walking distance, depending on how many of you want to become a lord or lady. We can build our little Bulls Central kingdom. Get this, you can even add lord to your dating profile. Established Titles is actually running a Black Friday sale, plus if you use the code BULLS, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/bulls to get your gifts now and help support the channel. And I will leave all that information down in the description. Now, I quickly wanted to start with a player that I actually think the Bulls missed a really big opportunity on. That being said, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he still could be a trade target for the Bulls, as there has been some speculation that he could be involved in the trade for the right price, and that is Bojan Bogdanovic. Now, I made a video before the start of the season, that this was before the Jazz ultimately traded Bogdanovic, that the Bulls should really make a strong offer for Bojan to the Jazz. Not to say that they should have gone all in for Bojan, but for a guy who is a great outside shooter, a big who can shoot from outside, he also checked the box for adding size for the Bulls, although not rim protection, and he was on an expiring deal. This was, of course, before the Pistons offered him an extension. And after that video, I actually got a lot of heat from Bulls fans saying adding Bogdanovic wouldn't have really made sense for the Bulls at all, how he really wouldn't have moved the needle at all for the Bulls, and that he wasn't worth trading a first-round pick for, which was part of the trade package. I included that Portland pick because I thought for sure the Jazz, knowing Danny Ainge, was going to want to think that he's fleecing a team in a trade, and we knew he was stacking picks for a rebuild. And the reason I say this was a missed opportunity was because the Pistons barely had to give up anything for Bogdanovic. Kelly Olynyk, Saban Lee, and Cash, no picks whatsoever, not even a second-round pick. And of course, Bogdanovic has been absolutely balling for them, putting up over 20 points per game on very high efficiency, shooting over 41% from three on over 6 attempts per game. Dude was playing so well for them, they offered him an extension for 2 years. Now, because they offered him an extension, you'd have to think the Pistons are likely going to be holding on to him. Otherwise, why give him an extension? Just let his salary come off the books next season, especially if he doesn't fit your overall timeline. But it's also possible they gave him the extension to retain him beyond this season as a trade chip for a team like the Bulls, needing shooting, needing a veteran who fits their timeline, rather than just letting Bogdanovic walk for nothing in free agency. And if that is the case, this is a guy the Bulls should be making some calls on. Bogdanovic is one of the more lethal shooters in the league, and unlike some of the other guys I'm about to cover, he actually can score inside as well and can actually give you in the range of 17 to 20 points per game, while some of the other sharpshooters are likely going to give you 10 to 12 points per game, maybe a little bit more. The biggest challenge obviously is his salary. If they make a trade for him this year, it would be different if they made a trade for him next year, since his salary will be slightly reduced. But the Bulls would have to figure out how they match that money, or at least come within about a 10% range of $19.5 million that Bogdanovic is making this season. And of course, the fit. Yeah, you could have Bogdan start at the 4 and have Pat come off the bench, but then the Bulls starting unit would be even more of a disaster on defense when you've got a starting lineup consisting of Lavine, DeRozan, Bogdanovic, and Vucevic. Now, Bogdanovic would be great coming off the bench and a scorer in the second unit, but I don't know that he'd be willing to accept a lesser role. But anyway, a trade here could look like the Bulls sending Coby White, and yes, Coby is basically going to be included in all of these because he's the Bulls' biggest trade chip and doesn't fit that well with how guard-heavy this roster is. Coby White, Derrick Jones Jr., Tony Bradley, Javonte Green, Marcus Simonovic. Honestly, the reason a lot of these other guys are included is because you need the extra salary, and I'm not going to include Patrick Williams or Alex Caruso, as I don't know if Bogdanovic is actually worth that much. I don't want to include Derrick Jones Jr., and I certainly don't want to include Javonte, but some sacrifices have to be made if you want to obtain high-level shooters. The next guy that has been involved in trade rumors recently, another great shooter, although he struggled more recently and has also struggled to stay healthy, and that's Joe Harris. It's been said that the Nets are looking to shop Harris. This would be a much more risky trade because it's very possible Joe Harris has played his best days and is now on the decline. He's 31 years old, didn't play a ton last season. So far this season, he has not looked like the shooter he used to be at all, shooting 33% on near 5 attempts per game. This compared to just a couple of seasons ago in which he shot a league high 47% over 6 attempts per game. And the biggest risk is that contract. It'd be different if Harris was on an expiring deal, but he's under contract for next season as well, and for a pretty big payday, making $18.6 million this year and near $20 million next season. As such, you'd have to give up a lot to get him, and there is no guarantee you're going to see Harris shoot the way that he used to. Honestly, the more I think about it, the Bulls would have to give up too much to get Harris, where it's probably not even worth it, because you're essentially going to have to give up either all the guys that I just mentioned in the prior trade with Bogdanovic, but you're not going to get the level of production that you see with Bogdanovic, and then he also can cap strap you for the following season when it comes to signing free agents in the 2023 offseason. But if the Nets are willing to send a pick or two as an incentive for us to take on Joe Harris's bad contract, even though the Nets don't really have any picks to actually trade to begin with, then yeah, maybe it's something to consider. The next guy that's been sort of involved in trade rumors and packages, but not really as much as one of his teammates, and that's Max Strus. Sending Max Strus home back to Chicago. Yes, everyone is talking about Duncan Robinson because it's clear the Heat are looking to get out of that bad contract. And in the offseason, yeah, I would have entertained a trade idea for Robinson, who had fallen out of the Heat rotation, but now after seeing him play so far this season, no, there is no way I would sign up for taking on his big contract that is going to pay him all the way through 2026. But Max Strus, on the other hand, yeah, that's something I would consider. Now, I don't think the Heat would want to trade Strus. The only reason I would say it's a potential is because he's on an expiring contract and is going to be looking for a big payday, given he's outperformed his current contract, which is insane that he's on the minimum. And quite frankly, the Heat can't really afford to give another big contract to yet another guard after recently giving Hero one this past offseason and Robinson the offseason before that. And because the Heat have kind of struggled, they may look to make a desperate move to shake up the roster, just like the Bulls will be doing. And because Strus is on such a low salary, $1.8 million, this isn't the situation like the prior two trades in which you would have to package all of these players to make the money work. No, like technically, you could trade Tony Bradley for Max Strus straight up and it would work, but the Heat would obviously never go for that. But instead, for Max Strus, to make it enough of an incentive for the Heat, we're going to trade that Portland first-round pick for Strus. The Heat, they need picks. They also have to start thinking about their future with Lowry close to retirement, Jimmy getting older, and a first-round pick for an expiring contract that they're not sure if they're going to be able to pay him for the long term is actually a pretty good deal for them. The next guy on this list who I really like and have talked about before, but it's probably the most unrealistic because of the salary and the fact that he's been linked to other teams in trades, and that's Buddy Hield. Say what you will about him and that he doesn't impact winning or that his defense is lousy. He's a damn good shooter, and he's a consistent shooter. Get this, so far this season, Buddy Hield is shooting over 41% from 3 on almost 10 attempts per game. That is insane. Now, Buddy does take a lot of threes in general, but this is the highest percentage he shot in his career on that kind of volume. He's also shooting a career high 62% true shooting, and also a career high in offensive box plus minus, and actually a career high in net box plus minus, which shows he's actually been much more impactful on the court for the Pacers so far this season. But the challenge, the salary, making $21.7 million this year, $19.2 million next year. If you want to make a trade for Buddy Hield, you're likely going to have to include Patrick Williams and Coby White, along with guys like Derrick Jones Jr., Javonte Green, Tony Bradley to make the money work. And at that point, is it worth it? Giving up young players, athletic, versatile defenders in Derrick Jones Jr. and Javonte, all for Buddy Hield, who's about to be 30, and again, still could just be having a nice hot streak to start the season and could come in and have fit issues with the Bulls, given the Bulls already have so many guards, and you'd be giving up really your only power forward in Patrick Williams, and Buddy Hield is likely gonna want a starting role, which he's not gonna get on the Bulls over Lavine or DeRozan. So it's why this trade is likely unrealistic, unless of course it's a package deal in which Miles Turner is included, which would give the Bulls shooting and rim protection between both of them. Likely would have to include Vucevic from the Bulls at that point, but I actually think it would probably be worth it. And then finally, I can't believe I'm saying this, and the only reason I'm saying is because he has been rumored to be shot by his team, and that's Grayson Allen. No, you know what? I take it back. I'm not doing it. Can't stand the guy. I want him nowhere near my team. That scumbag can go to the Lakers or something, or even the Magic, and fade out into irrelevancy in the league. I don't care that he's a good shooter. I don't want shady-ass players on the Bulls. Keep him as far away as possible from my team. Sorry, guys. I don't know what I was thinking. Bulls might be desperate for some shooting, but they're not that desperate. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought about some of these trades, and what are some trades that you would like to see the Bulls make, aside from Grayson Allen, of course? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.